In this video, Vladimir Kramnik goes down in chess history and achieves chess immortality by sacrificing the rook, then sacrificing the bishop, and finally, you guessed it, sacrificing the rook and the bishop in his brand new chess opening in the game of the year at the 2018 Candidates Chess Tournament versus Levon Aronian. Let's dive right in. In the game, Levon playing as white. He opens 1e4. Now, this was a big shocker at the time. Levon in 2018 was mostly a 1d4 and maybe 1c4 knight f3 player. He almost never played 1e4 back then. Now, Vladimir, being a big Berlin defense expert, he went straight for his trusty Berlin defense. So we have e5, knight f3, knight c6, and then bishop b5, and finally knight to f6. The Berlin defense against the Ruy Lopez, a shocker to absolutely no one. This is just what Vladimir Kramnik does these days. After all, he was the one who really popularized this opening versus Garry Kasparov in their 2000 World Championship match. But I digress. All right, from here, white has a few main ideas, and Levon Aronian goes for one of the big ideas for white. That is just d3. Now, this move may look kind of timid. After all, white is just defending the pawn, but it turns out white has a number of very, very intricate, tricky ideas from here. Now, Vladimir, bishop c5 is the move, very logical, developing his bishop to perhaps the most active square it can go to right now, pressuring f2, setting up castling, and so on. And now Levon goes for what is, in my opinion, maybe the critical line against the Berlin defense, at least these days, if you want a complicated game. That is taking the knight on c6 and heading for some sort of Berlin exchange structure. All right, black here takes back with the d-pawn, d takes c6, and from here, Levon castles. So what do we have here? We have essentially a version of the Ruy Lopez exchange, except, of course, black did not go a6, and beyond that, black also has the knight here and the bishop here. And it turns out, I don't want to bore you with the details, but this is a very, very complicated structure where this knight is misplaced. It wants to be on perhaps e7. The bishop is also misplaced. It wants to be on perhaps d6, and therefore white does have some chances of fighting for an edge in this opening. Now, Vladimir, queen to e7 is the move. This is a very strong move here, maybe the strongest move against short castles, and black has ideas like bishop g4, long castles, and so on from here. And now Levon, in 2018, he made a move that turns out to be not just a mistake, but we're talking a mistake of just historic proportions that will lead to the immortal game we have right here. Levon plays the move h3. Now, this move, at first glance, is very, very logical. With queen to e7, black is likely intending bishop g4 and then long castles. And now, obviously, you guard g4, stopping any sort of bishop g4 nonsense. So what is the problem with this move? Well, there is one move that punishes this move h3 from white, and it happens to be the move that ignites Vladimir Kramnik's brand new chess opening in this chess game right here, what I'm calling the Kramnik variation, for lack of a better name right here. And Kramnik plays the move. This is essentially a beginner style move, but it is the strongest one here, and it's just devastating. Rook to g8. And this move deserves 2 exclamation points for style points right here. This move had never been played in an over-the-board Grandmaster game. It had been played in a few correspondence games, but never at the highest levels, and that effectively makes this a brand new chess opening that I'm calling the Kramnik variation. All right, here. What's the idea? It's simple. You want to go g5, then g4, and just wipe the white king off the face of the board. And at this point, Levon Aronian was likely, things I can't say on YouTube right now, but he was not having a good time when he saw this move, rook to g8, Kramnik's new chess opening. All right, what does he do? Well, he goes king to h1, sliding his king over off the g file. It makes a lot of sense. After all, the king on this square, it's lined up with the rook and the bishop. That is not what you want with your king, so this does make a lot of sense. And in terms of a general prophylactic move, if you don't know what you're doing here as white, that move makes quite a bit of sense. Now, Kramnik, he goes knight to h5. The idea being intending knight f4 potentially, or maybe even f5 ideas. So a very flexible move. And beyond that, this knight move does synergize, not synergize, but it capitalizes on the weakness of the move h3, because now If the knight ever goes to, say, f4 and white ever goes g3, then the h3 pawn becomes oh so vulnerable. So it's a very, very good response here by Kramnik. Now, Levon, the computer gives ideas like knight c3, bishop b3, and so on here, trying to play active d4, but instead he goes c3. Now, the idea behind c3 here is very logical, and it's a very typical idea in this sort of Berlin exchange variation line that is just so common these days for white. The idea is he wants to go d4, and he's responding to this future flank attack with an immediate attack in the center. However, Kramnik, he has it all worked out. He has literally everything mapped out, and he ignores the threat of d4 in this new opening he invented, and he goes for the move g5. Vladimir Kramnik, you dog, you madman. He is going for the attack. He ignores the threat of d4. And of course, Levon here has the option of going d4, but he goes for a different idea, which is actually quite a bit trickier. He plays this move, knight takes e5, which is not a knight sacrifice. Levon does not sacrifice any pieces in this game. I mean, he's not literally Vladimir Kramnik during his immortal game right here. He's just taking on e5, the point being, if you take back, then d4 hits the queen and the bishop sort of like this, at which point white is going to regain the piece immediately with a very good game. So Kramnik here, what's he going to do? Does he take the knight? Oh no, he does not. g4 is the move. What a shocker of a move. And there is a devastating tactical idea associated with this move. Now, the most obvious question is, what if white just takes this pawn? Can't Levon just win a pawn and kind of, actually, he'd be up 2 pawns. Isn't Levon just kind of winning here? Well, if you take that pawn, it leads to essentially a forced checkmate, believe it or not. Instead, in the game, Levon goes d4, but I have to show you this real fast. This is the depth of Vladimir Kramnik's super brain during this new chess opening that led to the game of the year and his immortal game. The idea, very simple. If you take here, black takes. And if white takes back, queen to h4. Okay, everyone can see that. But the real shocker move, if the king goes over, knight to g3, and the pawn on f2 is pinned to the king, and there's literally nothing stopping queen h1, as you can't take the knight. Again, that pawn is pinned. That is the depth of Vladimir Kramnik and his super brain in this game right here. All right. What does Levon do? d4. He tries to block the attack of the bishop. The bishop is just too strong. Kramnik drops back, bishop d6, pressuring the knight. So far, so good. Now Levon plays a very, very provocative move, g3. I mean, trying to control the f4 square, I suppose, but in doing so, simply giving up this pawn on the h3 square. I guess Levon had no other option here. Now, this might be the only mildly inaccurate move of the game by Kramnik. He takes the knight on e5. Bishop takes e5. Instead, the computer says bishop e6 and long castles is a little bit better, but Kramnik playing also a decent move here. He takes the knight. White takes back. Black takes on e5. So far, so good. And now, look at all of Kramnik's pieces swarming in on the white king here. This is just not looking good for the Armenian Grandmaster Levon Aronian. He is just falling prey to Kramnik and his brand new chess opening. All right, queen d4, offering the queen trade. Does Kramnik go for it? Now, normally Kramnik is a very good endgame player, and it turns out taking on d4 is perfectly fine. But Kramnik says, no way, Jose. He drops back, queen e7. He wants a fight this game. He is bringing the fight to white, and he wants to be immortalized in chess history for the game of the year right here. All right, Levon Aronian. He's got to keep the king side closed. With that in mind, there's a lot of tension right here. So he goes h4, trying to keep this area of the board nice and closed. Now we have c5. Kramnik pressuring the queen. The queen drops back to c4, or drops sideways, I should say, to the c4 square. But now bishop e6 hits the queen again. Now black here, ready for long castles with tempo. What's going on here? Levon, queen b5, hits the king, but now Kramnik, c6, not afraid to weaken his queen side, with the point being, you hit the queen, and you defend the b7 square. I can draw arrows correctly here. Therefore, here the queen has to go back. We have queen to a4, and now look at this. The queen on the a4 square is completely out of the game. It needs to be way over, say, on e2 or g2 defending the king side, but on a4 it's just not doing that. And what is Levon going to do after Kramnik's next move right here, the key move f5, blowing open the king side? This is where things go from bad to just downright insane for Levon right here. All right, bishop g5 hits the queen. Levon trying to fight back, trying to apply some pressure. Levon thinking, all right, my bishop on there, supported by the pawn. Surely Kramnik won't take the bishop. But he thought wrong, because Kramnik finds the brilliant move, the first of 4 piece sacrifices by Kramnik in this game of the year / new chess opening. Rook takes g5, giving up the rook for the bishop, the rook sack, the exchange sack, whatever you want to call it. Here we go. H takes g5. And what was the idea behind this? Very simple. The bishop controls the f4 square. So Kramnik removing the defender so he can go f4 himself. And now it's only the pawn controlling that square. Kramnik is crashing through on the king side. Levon, he knows the queen is out of the defense. He knows the #1 rule in attacking chess, but also defensive chess: bring every piece into the attack / the defense. Therefore, queen d1 makes a lot of sense. The queen slides back. Levon here trying his best to hang on. But Kramnik, rook to d8, bringing the last piece into the attack. Kramnik also knows that rule. Bring every piece into the attack. Now, queen c1. Kramnik, what's he going to do? He takes on g3. Of course, if white takes back, knight takes g3, wins back that pawn, and forks the king and the rook. Therefore, white obviously cannot do that. But what else can he do? Look at this. The queen on c1 is just blocking in the white queenside pieces. White here can barely even develop. If he goes knight d2, that just cuts off the queen from accessing these squares here. So Levon, he says, you know what? Knight to a3. We're going to develop. Maybe we go knight c2 to e3 or something like that. We're going to find some way to bring more pieces to the defense. But here, Kramnik, rook d3. The rook enters the game. The rook on the 3rd rank. I mean, it's not quite an octopus. That would be a knight. But this rook is just a monster right here. Now, Levon, rook d1. Very logical. You're trying to trade off the opponent's, I wouldn't say strongest piece, but certainly one of the strongest pieces right now, that being the rook on d3. So, rook d1 offers the trade of the rooks, trying to get it off. But now Kramnik, he activates piece sacrifice #2 by giving up the bishop. Now, this is not a rook sacrifice. After all, if you take on d3, black takes on e4, hits the king, and then wins back that piece effective immediately. So I can't call it a rook sack, but it is a bishop sacrifice because the bishop is on pre. White can simply take it right here, right now. So what happens if white takes the bishop? Well, nothing good. In the game, Levon goes f3 instead of capturing on d5. But I do have to show you the depth of Kramnik's idea in this immortal game right here. If you take the bishop, the idea, it's mate in about 5 moves. Queen e4 hits the king. Then you take on f2 like this. The king slides over. If you take the pawn, it's even worse for white. Then queen to f3, threatening knight g3, and that would be mate. So white has to give up the rook just to hang on, but he does not last long in the end, and it does lead to a forced checkmate. Therefore, on move 25 here, Levon Aronian, he goes f3. He doesn't take the rook. He doesn't take the bishop. He just moves the pawn. But here, in this position, Kramnik, he ups the ante by sacrificing pieces number 3 and 4. He sacrifices, yes, the rook and the bishop. How does he do it? Well, here, technically, with this diagonal closed off, white can take the rook. That is a free rook, chess YouTube. That is a rook sacrifice, but it's also a bishop sacrifice. White can literally capture either piece. What happens here? Well, first of all, if you take, say, the rook right here, black simply takes on e4, queen takes e4, and the threat is f2, which would be essentially checkmate after rook f3, queen takes. That would be mate. And white here is just completely defenseless. As you can see, mate in 4 moves. So instead, in the game, Levon, he takes the bishop, the other piece that was sacrificed by Kramnik. Again, 4 pieces sacrificed in this game so far. And Kramnik, how does he finish off the game? Queen to e2. Then we have rook e1. Makes a lot of sense. After all, the queen is now pinned to the king. What the heck is Kramnik thinking here? Well, he simply goes g2 like this right here. And in this position, Levon Aronian resigns on the spot. There are a lot of options, but they do not end well. If white goes king to h2, then the winning sequence, g1, you promote to a queen. Then if king to h3 here, then bang, queen g3 is checkmate. Instead, if you capture here, the sequence is f2, hits the king, king to h1, rook to h3, hits the king again, king to g2, and then f1, promotes to a queen with the double attack. That is also checkmate. No matter what you do as white, in the end, after g2 check hits the king, you are going to lose. And for that reason, Levon Aronian here, he resigns to Vladimir Kramnik, and his new chess opening / the game of the year / quite honestly, Kramnik's immortal game, maybe the finest game of chess, start to finish, that Vladimir Kramnik has ever played in his entire career. And despite him accusing everyone of cheating nowadays, Kramnik used to be, a pretty respectable chess player. So you got to give it to Kramnik right here. This was really his immortal game in the 2018 Canada tournament versus Levon Aronian. All right, Chess YouTube, hope you enjoyed this video. So comment down below, what was your favorite piece sacrifice in this new chess opening? Was it, let's see, move 19, the rook sacrifice? Was it move 24, the bishop sacrifice? Or was it my personal favorite, move 25, the rook / bishop sacrifice, giving up both pieces? You can't take both in one go, but both pieces on pre right here, literally for free. 2 free pieces. You can't make this stuff up right here. What a wild game. I am never going to see Vladimir Kramnik the same way after watching this video right here, or this game right here. And quite frankly, if this game doesn't scream, start the procedure, I don't know what does. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in your chess improvement journey in 2025 and beyond. And I'll see you in the next video.